They bought it for $499. That's $1,029 a square foot in Calgary. Now, I went to see this one yesterday, 409 square feet. My closet at home is bigger than that.
Was it anyone local in Calgary buying these?
They wouldn't let a realtor here or a buyer here buy.
What do you think that's worth today, John?
Half their money.
You guys found all of the morons from Toronto and you sold them Toronto prices in Calgary.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Tom Storey Show. It is truly now, Stephen, the dog days of summer. People are probably starting to have the September scaries, not just the Sunday scaries, that the kids are going to go back to school at some point here. The summer is going to be over. Maybe you're excited because you get childcare again. Thank you for coming back to the show this week. This week's guest is John Ripco. I very rarely say this, John, but truly I believe it. You are a legend in the real estate industry. It is the truth. I say it because I mean it. Me, John, Steve have known each other for going on close to a decade now, I would guess, John, is when we maybe first communicated with each other through coaching. John is in Calgary. He runs one of the very top teams for Royal LePage, and he hasn't done it for a year or 2 years. You've done it for quite a while, John. So welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm really pumped for our listeners to hear your perspective on the market that you're going through right now and what you've seen over the years of doing real estate. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast.
So, John, for the listeners, give them a bit of a background, because me and Steve know you pretty well at this point. But like, who's John Ripco? How long have you been doing real estate? What does the team look like? And what's going on right now in the Calgary market?
Well, I followed through a career cut. Whatever.
Don't worry. Keep going.
Basically, I'm originally from Montreal, and I got transfers from there to Toronto, then to London. And then I switched companies to go to Sarnia, which is where I met my wife, which forced me, if you wish to call it that, to move to Calgary because I followed her career out here and decided to get into real estate, which was always a long-time passion of mine. That was back in 1984 before you guys were even a thought in your parents' minds. And,
I was around.
Steve was in diapers, probably.
So got into real estate and I wanted to give it a 1-year shot to see what it's like. Well, 41 years later, here I still am. I'm basically in the transition plan of succession planning right now, yep. But basically just loved what we're doing and forayed into different areas of real estate, which previously I never even knew existed. And it's just been a lot of fun, and I still really enjoy it. I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. Even when I'm on a holiday, we'll go and see what's happening in that city or country or wherever I am.
Sorry, I was just going to say the stat that we always hear, right, in the industry is like something like 87% of realtors don't make it to year 5. I wonder what percentage makes it to year 41. Probably like 2%, maybe less than that. So what's that been like? Like, how has this changed for you? It must be a completely different world to how you started. Is the industry that much fundamentally different from how it used to be? Or how have you seen things change over the years?
Let's go say this. When I started, it was a diametric change similar to what's happening to the industry today. When I started, computers weren't even invented per se. Basically NASA had them or whatever else. We used to get daily sheets from the real estate board that you then had to cut apart into these tiny little index card size listings and put them into whatever kind of manual you had and flip through them. So they were outdated the second they got printed, and you got them a day later. Then we transversed right at that time into daily receiving sheets of paper from the real estate board every single day with catalogs once a month to accomplish the same thing. Fortunately, back in, I'd say, early 92, 93, the advent of the internet for general consumerization came about, and I think that transformed the industry tremendously. What I love about today is technology. We basically, anything that comes across on a technological standpoint, we basically research and try and implement as soon as possible. Leading people like yourselves who basically are at the fore of it all. And that's the change that I've seen, and I think it's a fantastic change. Yet, believe it or not, we don't have a fax machine, Surprise, surprise. About 3 months ago, I had a realtor call me up and said, I have an offer for you. Can I fax it over? And I was stunned. I said, fax? Can you scan it? How do I do that? I said, oh my God. I said, take a picture with your phone. I don't have a phone with a camera. Oh my God. So anyways, we managed to get the deal done, but some people are still living in a dinosaur era, whereas basically today's consumer knows everything about technology and wants somebody who knows that they're at the forefront of their field. And so therefore, that's how it's changed from basically, I call it Barney Rubble Flintstone days to basically nuclear age.
I didn't know the CRA had a real estate license, because that's the only way you can still communicate with them is by fax or mailed in. If you've ever been audited or anything at the CRA, they still don't have email. So it's been super fun. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Tom.
No. What I was going to say for John is something that I've noticed too is and this isn't a real estate statement. It's just anyone that's successful for a long time in anything is John's a get shit done type of person. He gets an idea and he implements it and it's done. And that could be said about any industry. But going back to maybe how it used to be, it's changed a lot where realtors used to have access to all the information. So that booklet or sheet you would get, John, faxed you or carrier pigeoned or whatever happened, how it got to your office, you had all the information. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but consumers basically just had to call a real estate office and say, hi, what listings do you have? I'd like to know what's available. There was no internet. They couldn't go online, and they'd come in, and we were kind of the gatekeepers. We had the info because we built the system. And now it's the job of a realtor is, of course, to find you a property, but most buyers are finding them online first. And then what we do is different. So how have you seen that change happen?
Previously, we were the curators of all the information, and we chose what they saw. So what was frustrating is they drive by a home and say, well, why did you see that one? Or whatever. So then I had to explain the whole process. So basically, that's where the differentiated realtors, where you'd sit down with the clients ahead of time, assuming it's a buyer, and explain the whole process and why we're only going to, I'll call it a funneling effect. We start off with all the listings in the entire city and surrounding communities, and then we pare it down based on size, price range, quality, location, every single other element that was paramount to that buyer. And so that's why we're not looking at every house, because we're looking at the ones that specifically fit the requirements you have as a consumer.
Yeah.
Today, we're more like guides. Yes, they all start their search online. And so now we guide them to make the most proper decision, the best financial decision for themselves and their entire family. So it's a totally different, I guess it's a mind shift on our part, but also providing the consumer more of what they're looking for, an expert to tell them why they should buy in a certain community or not, or what's the difference between one builder and another. Because I look at it and we explain, when I say I'm referring to the entire team, we explain to the consumer why we're taking an approach we are and why we wouldn't buy a certain type of home in a specific community versus another one we would. Because we're looking at, it's easy to buy anything. We're looking at the day in the future, be it 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years later, where they're selling the home. All things being equal, we want their home to increase in value the most and sell as quickly as possible whenever they make that decision. Versus saying, oh God, if I knew that, I would have bought this house. So again, going back to we're their guide to assist them in making the best decision possible. Having said that, though, we've sold homes that back onto like an 8-lane highway. Okay, we tell them, look, it's your choice, but this will not be easy to resell. But I want it for a certain reason. We're giving them everything when we go through our morning and daily ritual and shave. Right? That's the morning daily ritual, the ritual as they're called. From that standpoint, I know I've told them, we know we've told them everything possible. Now they can make the best decision possible for themselves.
Because I think, from the outside looking in, if someone's watching this conversation, they'll think that the next part I'm going to bring up here is going to be a biased take by all of us, because we are all real estate agents and we make money when people buy and sell property. But John, over 40 years, I'm sure there's been noise the entire time for realtors can be replaced by X, by X, by the things keep changing. And this day's version of it is artificial intelligence and AI and all the things that are happening, or there's many different companies that all want to come take a piece of the pie because they can see it. Why have realtors lasted the 41 years you've been doing this? And do you think they will? Do you think the future is the same as now? The job that we'll be doing is more guiding people. Like, I had a conversation this morning with someone that was interviewing a few different realtors, and it was actually just for a purchase, not a sale. And she asked me a question about a specific street in Toronto, and I'm sure every neighborhood has this, where there's streets that look like the way they're spelt look like you would say it one way, but it's actually completely different. And she's like, do you know this area? And I said the name of it. She's like, oh, the other realtor I talked to said it the wrong way. I'm like, yeah, because they don't know the neighborhood. There's all these like little things that come up. But I'll get to my point here. Over 40 years, realtors have been tried to be replaced this entire time. Why are we still here? Why are we doing a real estate podcast? Why do consumers still come to us to help them through these big decisions?
In my opinion, it's a matter of you have to be an expert in whatever field you're in. So for us, we should be experts in real estate. That consumer might be a fantastic mechanic, dentist, professional in some other field, etc. They know their marketplace. They don't know real estate. Yes, there's the internet. They have all sorts of venues they can search and research to see what other opinions are. The bottom line, it's their money. And this is the largest investment they're likely going to make in their entire life. So from that standpoint, they want somebody, they want to have somebody that they can trust. And what does that trust mean? It's a little bit different for everyone, depending on what their motivation is. But bottom line, you portray whatever they're looking for, or you don't. And that's why I'm sort of on the fence with regard to all these legislative documents we have to sign now with regard to having to commit a buyer that they have to be working with us. They have to sign this documentation that says they can only work with me. They can't work with anyone else. Well, the philosophy I have is, wait a second, I haven't developed any relationship or any trust with them. Why should they work with me?
Yeah. Well,
right?
Like, so even the forms we have now, John, in Ontario, it's like I can't have a conversation of any context without sending them an 11-page form before I give them any advice. Could you imagine like going on a first date and like you're about to order your drinks? You're like, okay, before we get started here, I just need to go over this like 8-page PowerPoint with you. They'd be like, you'd be completely thrown off.
No, but in Alberta, Tom, isn't Alberta the province that has mandatory buyer agency now?
Oh.
Isn't
we
that's
have mandatory
the case,
buyer
right?
agency. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like the one crazy regulation that Alberta actually has. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I from the outside looking in, we've never made mandatory buyer agency here in BC, which actually shocks me. We did remove limited dual agency. So what I see is likely the more realistic practice is most agents are probably not going to then sign the buyer agency agreement until the time of which they're writing an offer. Right? So that's not what it's intended to do. So I'd like to get your reaction about that. But first, I want to just comment on you alluded to that, we're becoming guides. That's actually the position that our regulator here in BC has taken. They said you are no longer, this is a couple of years ago, so I hope they haven't retracted it or whatever, but they said you are no longer salesmen and women. You are now very much, what's the word they used? I want to say, they didn't say guide.
Purveyors.
No, I'm trying to think of the word. It's just escaping me right now. They're basically saying you are, you are a guide. You're an advisor. I think they used advisor. And so they don't want you selling. They want you advising through the process, similar to maybe what a lawyer might do through any sort of process that they have. However, the consumer didn't ask for that. The consumer still thinks we sell. So they want to hire the guy who's going to sell their home for more money. They don't want someone who's going to advise them through the sale process. So I wanted to touch on that. But now let's get back to this buyer agency. Explain to me mandatory buyer agency in Alberta, because you guys have zero regulations for anything except for this one crazy one.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Real estate agents, your clients should be proud of your website if you're going to feature their home on it. It's not 2005 and it's time to up your game. You need to have a website that is mobile friendly, that has SEO optimization, that people really want to actually go to and learn more about you. And that's where Realty Ninja comes in. They've built websites for thousands of real estate agents in Canada. We know a ton of people that have listened to the show have created their websites with Realty Ninja and they love it. And the best part, viewers and listeners of the show get 20% off your first year. So go to realtyninja.com/Tom to learn more. That's realtyninja.com/Tom. And oh, guess what? You don't pay until you launch your website. Go check them out because they're awesome. And now back to the podcast.
Basically, what it states is the second, if we met right now, say, Steve, before I can show you any home, we go through this document stating that you agree to work exclusively with me. Now, there's two splits in the road, if you wish. There, it could be. I'll make this simplistic. It's a permanent relationship for a specific period of time, or basically you can almost pick anybody you want, but not really. Okay, without getting into fine details as far as how this works, we're supposed to get that signed the moment that we meet with that client. Okay. Mm-hmm. Realistically, you hit the nail on the head. 99% of realtors get that signed when they're putting the offer together. Okay. So the difference there is the regulator wants us to differentiate between a customer and a client. So if you don't have this document signed, you should have to treat that individual as a customer. So therefore, you can't give them any advice, insights, or things of that nature. Just give them the facts. Okay, here's the house. The data sheet says its asking price is this, the size is this, and that's it. If they want to, consumer wants you to do an analysis or get your opinion, legally you can't give that unless they are a client. So unless they have that document signed. The regulator's coming down pretty hard in the last year or so with regard to reviewing all the documentations, all the transactions, and saying, hey, wait a second, you signed this on whichever day, okay? Mm-hmm. Yet your buyer agency signed on that same day. That's basically impossible. Mm-hmm. Now, what most people do is they predate, even though they're signing it on the same day they're writing the offer, they predate it by a day, a week, a month, or whatever the case is. Okay, so to me, it doesn't, the thing is, yes, going back to the BC thing where they want everybody to be a guide, the consumer wants us to be the guide. However, they want us to have an opinion. They want us to say, you know what, this is a great community versus that one. Or, yes, this is a great time to purchase a home. Best time to buy one was 20 years ago, and next best time is today. That's great. But overall, why should I buy today versus they're concerned that interest rates are going to start skyrocketing or dropping or whatever is going to happen with tariffs or whatever other economic impetus there's going to be affecting Canada. So from that standpoint, you create trust by explaining to the consumer your position and your belief. They might have a diametrically different opinion, but that's okay. Because they're looking at it and saying, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. I disagree with him, but I can move forward to the next step.
So can you not, if you have to have buyer agency, does that mean that if you buy, you have to use a realtor to buy real estate? Like you can't just go in and you can still go in just with a lawyer if you want and do a private deal but if it's on MLS, you have to use a realtor or no?
No, you don't have to use a realtor. All that means is as a realtor, what's my duty to that consumer?
Got it.
Okay, so basically I'm treating him either as a customer or as a client. And in my opinion, the vast majority of realtors don't follow the so-called guidelines. Mm-hmm. They push the limits.
Right.
Yeah, it's an easy workaround because you're looking for the way to not push away the client in the first place. Can you imagine if you actually had to do it the right way? Anybody watching this right now, can you imagine if the first thing your agent did is, I do want to show, or just an agent you phone, I do want to show you that house. Cool. You want to get married first, and then we'll go find out if you like us afterwards, right? So,
and one thing though, Steve, you can actually sign that agreement just for that one house.
yeah.
So it doesn't have to be for a specific period of time. You can say, look, I can show, but the thing is, you have to explain all this to the consumer ahead of time, saying, look, I can show it to you, but I can't give you any opinions. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can sign this contract only for this one house.
And it's also crazy to me that the agent would consider like, okay, we're going to sign this for this one house. So I'm going to give you agency now for the next 15 minutes and then not again after that. Like, it is kind of crazy. So I'll explain to you kind of the way we work here. And buyer agency is not mandatory in BC. It's all but not mandatory because they've taken away limited dual agency. So you basically have to go get your own agent in advance. But the written contract is not mandatory. But I think it's actually a big downside to the consumer if the agents aren't going to have that conversation. Because the old school way is, I'm going to go look at that house, and whoever the guy is that opens the door, I'll work with him, or whoever answers my call, or whoever buys my real estate weekly ad, or not ad, I guess, whoever gets it when I enter my name on rew.ca or whatever platform I'm doing, I'll just deal with that person. Buyer agency. Go ahead.
Like, remember one thing with this buyer agency stuff. I think all the government's trying to do, or the regulators trying to do, is we used to have something called threshold rights. So if I showed you the home as a consumer, and then, so Steve, I showed you the home, and you decided you met whomever else is a realtor, right?
Yeah.
And wanted to use them, and they wrote the offer. The law used to be that you'd still get paid, even though that realtor wrote the offer. So if it was Tom would not get paid. You'd still get paid, even though you did not write the offer, but you showed them, you crossed that threshold into the home. Then they got rid of that law. Then it came back again. And then they said, well, wait a second, this doesn't work. So through a long, convoluted process, they came up with this, I won't say justifiably right or wrong, but they came up with this new buyer agency scenario.
Do you guys ever see in our listings here sometimes in Toronto, it's actually mostly communities just outside the city, and they do it because Toronto agents are the culprits of making.
I know exactly what you're going to say, and I do it. I do it on my listings.
So it's basically like it says in the broker remarks, if we show your client this house without your client telling us they're represented, and you make an offer, we're not paying you the full cooperating commission. We're holding back a certain amount because we did all the work. So your client can't just lie. You can't just send them up. An open house is different. That's fine. But if we did all the work to show it to them, and then we get an offer from someone that we just showed on our listing, represented by somebody else, because what would happen, right, is they'd be like, I can't go this weekend. Just tell them you don't have a realtor. They'll show it to you, and then I'll help you with the offer. Right? That's what was happening.
No, we call it first physical introduction. Mm-hmm. So, and it's because of that. So because there are, let's say, 15,000 realtors in Vancouver and 5,000 in the Fraser Valley, a lot of Vancouver agents are like, the Fraser Valley, I'm not driving 35 minutes to go show property. So the buyer will call us directly, say they don't have an agent, say they're going to represent themselves. We go through, we show them the property, and then you're walking on thin ice because we can't give dual agency. So we basically have to open the door and make sure they don't steal something when they come in, and then let it, 20 minutes after the showing, an offer comes in from an agent that hasn't even seen the property. So that's the idea behind that, right? Like I always say that I get this call probably twice a month. Just show me the property. My agent's very busy. You just show me the property. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate that your agent's very busy. So am I. Do you think that it's important that your agent walks you through the property? No, I don't think it is. Okay. Your agent is going to get paid a buttload of money if you buy this property. Don't you think they should do some work to represent and help you? Some people don't believe they do. Right? They think that, no, you're the listing agent, you need to show it. The unfortunate part is the laws don't agree with that anymore. The laws are like, that's like sending in the defendant in with the prosecutor in a private room by themselves. Right? And that would never happen. So that line, that division needs to be set. So when we work with a buyer, we do have exclusive buyer agency signed in advance of showing them any properties. Now, that there's a very strategic way to do that. So any buyer listening to this is like, well, Steve's an asshole. They might be correct. But they are like, okay, I'm not going to sign a paper with him and say, okay, well, this is the only guy I'm going to use. Obviously not. So our strategy to show value in advance is not, our value as realtors is not to run out and show you property as fast as possible. You can do that on your own. You can phone realtors. You can figure that out on your own. Our value is to walk you through the process, let you know that we know how to get you through the process, and then advise on things like value and arranging everything. I can't remember who said it, but it's basically, we are the quarterback. We got to know where to distribute the ball. We don't run most of the touchdowns, right? You're the head coach. We're the quarterback. As the consumer, you're the head coach. You're telling us what to do. We're the quarterback. We get the ball across the line, but we're probably going to have to pass that ball off at certain spots. So anyway, we go through all of this first. We have a sit-down meeting. You will not see a property with my team without having some sort of a sit-down meeting. And then, yes, we do need to be hired. Now, we require to be hired because we're going to put our commitment to our buyers in writing and their commitment to us. Right? That's usually the issue that people have, is that agents don't want to say, hey, I require some commitment too because I'm doing this for a living. But the most important thing that I think we cover, that may be a lot, agents are starting to do it now, is just what is the expected remuneration for my time and for my energy, right? And I think buyer's agents want to pretend that they're just nice people and they're not getting paid. And then my thought is, if you're not going to have that conversation early, I want to be as transparent as possible. And I want the consumer to know that I am getting paid and what I'm getting paid. And I don't think a lot of agents are really comfortable with that. So that's, I think, why they do end up signing that buyer agency at the last second, as the same time as they're writing the offer. So I think it's coming though, Tom. I know Ontario's been looking at it over time, mandatory agency, and I think BC's been looking at it too.
Well, I think that's also why a lot of newer agents, and I'll stand by this statement, it's easier to be a buyer's agent than a listing agent. You don't have to have as much experience. You have to have more tools in your toolbox being a listing agent than being a buyer's agent. It's all happy. I mean, your clients, it's a different thing. Where are we going with this? Where do we start with this conversation?
So going back to what Steve just mentioned, and it goes back to something Tom mentioned a little while ago. That's why a lot of realtors leave the business or are forced out of the business because, I'm too busy. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, why don't you just give Tom Storey a call? He knows that downtown Toronto area really well. He'll show you all the properties, or he'll show you that listing, and then if you like it, I'll write the offer for you. Okay? But Tom's smart. He'll sit down and say, wait a second, you want to see this property? You have to sign this buyer agency, at least in Alberta, not necessarily in Ontario right now. And, well, wait a second, I'm not going to sign that. Well, guess what? We're not going to show it to you. Okay, like, why would we? Okay, so, but eventually, somebody's going to say, oh, wow, okay, this client called me up, I'm going to go show that property and then going to write an offer. They're wasting their time because they never pre-qualified the people, don't know. They may ask, hey, are you working with a realtor? And the client will say, no, I'm not yet. They are. Sometimes they actually even signed an agency agreement already with that other realtor. Yeah. Right? So how do you protect yourself? The bottom line to protect yourself is it's basically the reverse side of a listing contract. Mm-hmm. So you're getting that commitment from that buyer, and they have to be explained in so far as, hey, this is what you are signing. It's a legal document. But I'll just leave it there.
No, I mean, like, that's the big thing. That meeting, that 45-minute to an hour conversation, buyer consultation, before you ever go out and view any properties is paramount. Like, if you're a buyer, there should never be something that happens throughout the process and you're like, what is this? I've never heard of this. Last week, I took a call because I got referred a potential client, and they're like, okay, I want your advice on this offer. And I was like, okay, cool your jets. Like, did you make an offer on, you have an active offer out? I can't give you any advice. And she's like, yes, but I didn't sign anything with the other realtor. I'm like, wait,
What about the offer?
You have an offer. You have an offer out, so you had to have signed something. And again, it's not their fault. They don't know how the regulations work. But it was just, but going back to like with a buyer, I would actually be more concerned if I was a buyer and I called a realtor. I was like, can I see these three properties? The realtor's like, yeah, let's go right now. Let's just go see them.
Yeah.
That would be a red flag to me.
Buying a home is a big deal, so don't let your home inspection cause you more stress. For over 45 years, Carson Dunlop has helped buyers across Canada understand the homes that they are buying with detailed, calm, clear, client-first inspections. Carson Dunlop inspectors don't just point out problems, they explain what really matters in a way that will protect you in your home purchase. If you want confidence in your home inspection, top agents and home buyers trust Carson Dunlop. So to check out where they service and to book your inspection, go to carsondunlop.com right now.
I would want somebody to be like, okay, I'm happy to show them to you. You got 30 minutes for a Zoom call that I can kind of go through what this process is like to make sure that there's nothing that's going to be a surprise to you along the way. I'd actually be more concerned if how eager the person was just to get me out there and show it to me. I'd want them to actually sit down and go through the process.
But you are a realtor and you understand the industry. So let's switch this over and say that you're in financial services or some other sector, and they have the same regulation as we do. But you say, oh, I just want to sit down with you and buy these stocks or whatever. Right. So the consumer doesn't know that they have this framework that actually protects them. So their mandate is, no, I just have the next 2 hours of time and I want to go out and take a look at these three properties. This individual said, they'll run out and service me.
Yeah.
So what a lot of realtors here do, rightly or wrongly, technically it's against the law, but I think I understand the process. They'll meet with the client and say, look, we'll go through all the forms, and now you have a choice whether or not you want me to act on your behalf as a consumer or as a client. But that client, you're committing to work with me for whatever period of time or whatever, because there's all sorts of nuances there. So why don't we go out after it's all explained to them, and we'll look at those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 houses or whatever cases. Then you'll see what you're getting with me. And you either want to continue working with me or not. But at that stage, we won't go out another time unless we have that commitment.
I get it.
So going back to your dating thing, you don't have to sign these marriage documents before you go out on the first date. We're going to go out and have that drink. But after that first drink, hey, we're continuing to continue the relationship or not.
You know, one of the things we've always done too, we've been upfront with our clients is like, and sometimes in the past, I've pre-signed a blank cancellation form for a contract for a buyer saying like, we think we're really good at what we do, but even though we have to sign this contract with you, like I'm not the type of business owner that's going to hold someone to be a part of a contract they don't want to be a part of. So if things change, like I'll cancel it. It's not that I don't care, but it's like if we need to be on the same wavelength here to work together, and it's rarely ever happened, but I just feel like being upfront with people and being like, listen, if you're not happy, like this is an agreement we both have to be happy with. I'm happy to cancel as well. And I think you just got to be upfront with people and tell them, like, I'm not going to lock you in for 120 days if we start hating each other 25 days into it. Like, I probably want to get out as much as you do, but not every realtor thinks that way, right?
It's a partnership, and basically you either see eye to eye or you don't. And if you don't, cut down the umbilical cord and let everybody go their separate way.
You know what, Tom? In the past, when we've discussed this sort of thing, I've actually received DMs from agents saying, "Hey, I'd like you to elaborate more on that," because I think the reason buyer agency might be a hesitation for people is the agents don't know how to explain it, and then the buyers don't see the benefit of signing it. So maybe what I'll do now that I'm thinking about it is on a future episode, maybe we can put together kind of the argument for it and present it here in a way that is kind of like a, mini masterclass on what it is, because I think it's an important part of our business. But I think it is a lot of agents don't know how to explain it. And then a lot of clients are going to think that something's getting over on them because nobody likes committing or signing paperwork, right?
Yeah, so which makes sense, right?
Interesting topic to explore further, but I don't want to explore it further because I want to know what our Calgary correspondent is seeing right now.
We're
in
going to
your
John Ripco
marketplace.
live in Calgary. What's going on, John?
Well, because
Okay.
we are in a marketplace right. John, right now,
what you just mentioned to close off this thing on
Okay.
buyer agency. The newer realtors coming in over the last 2-3 years or whatever all this started with the regulator, for the most part, they're using it.
Right, because
Okay,
they
it's
learned
just
it
like
from the beginning.
They learned it, and this is necessary. So it's
Yeah.
old dogs like myself will say, shit, we've done this way for so many decades. Why do it? But then once you start implementing it, hey, it works. It's
Yeah.
beneficial for you. But it's basically you're always fighting new regulations, and it's more of the old guard that's the problem. But what happens is that we deal with a lot of consumers who come to the table and say, well, yeah, I know you just explained this to me, but the last couple of realtors I dealt with, they never even talked about this, so I never had to sign anything. Well, sorry, too bad, so sad. Anyways, going back to the Calgary marketplace, here it is. Drum roll. Okay. Okay. So the Calgary marketplace has definitely shifted, I'd say, over the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months over what we saw previously. Bottom line, what's interesting, people saying, oh, geez, the market's sliding away type of thing. Not at all. Because what's happened is we went through a period of ultra low inventory, similar to interest rates. When are you going to see a 0.95 interest rate again in your lifetime? Probably never. So anyway, so Calgary, we went from a super low inventory and intense bidding wars. Nothing crazy like you guys with 40, 50, 60 offers. That was the occasional. Normally we'd have like 10, 15, or 20 offers coming in, and the houses selling well above asking price. The thing to look at, though, is why was that happening? And you look at what I call interprovincial and international migration. And Calgary tends to have a huge number of people, net migration from other provinces. So let's forget about the international for the moment. Mm-hmm. And why do people move here? Well, they move here, and I'll use an example of Ontario. If the economy is not doing that well in Ontario, people don't have jobs. So they want to go where the jobs are. Well, Calgary always has had a massive number of opportunities, all the way from, I'll call it like minimum wage paying opportunities, all the way to massive 6-7 figure values insofar as incomes. Okay, the whole range. So from that standpoint, as a consumer, they want to go where they're going to get a job, because you got to have a lifestyle, right? Pay for their ongoing living expenses, etc. So what happens, they come out here, and especially if, in my opinion, if you're under 35 years of age, maybe even 40 pushing it, but especially those 20s and early 30s, they move out here to say, wait a second, there's this thing we call blue skies over here. Okay, Calgary is the second sunniest city in Canada. Medicine, that's the first, by the way. So
I thought Windsor. I thought Windsor was the Florida of Canada because it got so much sunshine.
Could be the warmest, but not. Medicine had us the greatest number of sunny days, and we were apparently a second. But you come out after that, and basically you have they come out here for the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. With 30 to 45 minutes or so, you could be out in the mountains, depending on where you live in the city. You can go hiking, or you can go skiing. There's all sorts of different things that you can do here that quite often you have to drive 2 or 3 hours to get to if you're in either, especially Ontario and even certain sectors of BC. And jobs are plentiful, and it's a laissez-faire type of business attitude. And what I mean by that is, my father-in-law had a great expression. He says, you guys, you work hard, but you also play hard. And so basically, it's not that 9 to 5 grind and, okay, wait a second, now you've got to, race home because now you got to do this and that, the other thing. Sometimes you will, just have more of the work-life balance, I find, in overall, at least in Calgary and the vicinity, not necessarily the same elsewhere in Alberta, but I think overall in Alberta as well, where it's a different attitude versus what you have now. Kind of speaking from experience as well, because as I mentioned previously, I went Montreal, Toronto, London, Sarnia, Calgary, and you really see a massive shift, and even the way people think. From the standpoint of here, it's more business focused. Get the job done, make a profit or whatever the case is, and go from there versus just putting in your time. So anyways, little bit of a tangent there insofar as the marketplace. So our marketplace now, That's slowed, guaranteed. However, the biggest thing is if you look at our months of inventory, roughly a year ago, in June of last year, our months of inventory was 1.2.
Crazy.
Earlier in
The
the
entire
year,
market combined
the entire,
was one.
entire market combined, yeah. It was actually 0.96 or 0.97 a few months prior to that. Okay, a balanced market here is somewhere between 3.5 to 5 months of inventory.
Yeah.
That's a balanced market. Guess where we are today? As of the end of June, okay, well, stats are going to come out here on probably Monday or Tuesday for July. We're at 2.62. So we're still technically in a buyer's market.
Yeah. That's a
I mean,
very
a seller's market. No, my mistake. So seller's market. Okay, because we're under 3.5 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're up roughly 135% from where we were a year ago. However, it's still busy. It's still busy. Now, you have to separate that into different segments. You have detached homes, you have attached homes, you have townhouses or row houses, and then you have the apartment style condos. Apartment style condos are getting hit right now. There's just too many of them on the marketplace. The amount of pre-construction units coming on the marketplace in the last 6 months and coming on in the next 2 years, when I give you the number, you wouldn't believe me. Okay, it's absolutely insane.
John, you're basically giving a Toronto update right now. It's like the exact same thing.
But I went to look at a project yesterday where we have some happened to be Toronto investors bought in this one complex, 260 units in there. Okay, It's just north and west of downtown in a very popular area called Kensington or Hillhurst. Okay, you can walk downtown, all sorts of amenities and shops and all that kind of stuff. Well, Calgary, for a brand new project, a high-rise project, this is only a 4-story, by the way, but if you went to the high-rise project, right now, you'd probably be paying somewhere between a low of $450 to a maximum $550 a square foot for a condo.
Okay.
Okay. This place, they sold it as a pre-construction with none of this guaranteed condo fees and rentals and all this kind of stuff. Just here it is, you're buying the unit, that's it. Okay. I'll give you an example. 409 square feet. They bought it for $419,900. That's $1,029 a square foot. That's double what we pay in Calgary. Now, I went to see this one yesterday, 409 square feet. My closet at home is bigger than that. Okay?
It's just...
You guys found all of the morons from Toronto and you sold them Toronto prices in Calgary. That's insane.
And then I went to think of the same person bought 4 units in this complex. So I saw one that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Okay, not bad. Holy crap. I mean, where'd you eat?
It's probably because at that moment in time when everything was crazy, I bet Toronto pre-con was selling at $1,400 a square foot, $1,500 downtown core. And they probably looked at this and was like, well, it's Calgary, but it's 33% cheaper, which arguably it probably should have been 50 to 60% cheaper to make that purchase decision. But that's crazy. So, but it's all Toronto people buying these pre-cons. Was it anyone local in Calgary buying these pre-cons or just Toronto people?
Here's the shocking thing. If you actually contacted the developer and said, hey, I want to buy one, they wouldn't let a realtor here or a buyer here buy. Oh,
they just wanted people from Toronto that weren't represented, that couldn't go in and get any advice and pay $1,000 a square foot in Calgary. Wow.
Exactly, because the way they were marketing these things was, hey, come to Calgary, look at how cheap these prices are compared to what you have. Mm-hmm. There's no PST in Alberta.
Yeah,
we have no land transfer tax. We have no rent controls. So this is the Wild West. You know, how could you lose, right?
What do you think that's worth today, John? That unit that they paid $1,000 a square foot, if it were to actually successfully sell in the resale market, what would they have to? What would they be losing?
You really want an honest answer?
Yeah,
here?
I'd like to know. Yeah,
half their money.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Crazy. Now, we have a sister company with our team here in Calgary that does property management. So I said, look, here it is. We could try and sell it. Okay, and I'll go down that road in a second. But I said, my opinion, I'd hold on to it for at least 2 or 3 years. Why don't you just lease it out, okay, cover some or all of your expenses, and then see where the marketplace is. The thing with this one developer, they built another project in another section of town here in Calgary, and miraculously, somehow, the odd person is paying the $1,000 a square foot. Now,
on the
as I
resale
said,
market.
The odd person. I have more fingers on a hand than those people. Okay, thing is, now I can't tell. There's no way of determining whether or not that buyer is yet another non-Albertan, or is it somebody local? I would suspect it's another investor per se. So realistically, we have some like uber luxury projects that are available and have been built over the last several years, and they have another project going up shortly. They're selling between $1,000 to $1,100 a square foot.
But it's high end.
This is buying the Bentleys and Rolls Royces of the world.
Sure.
Not a really good Toyota.
For home insurance of any type, I use Square One. Go to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show to buy your tenant, landlord, or homeowner insurance policy and save $20. That's squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show and save $20.
Okay, so
are these large units? They must be bigger too, right? Like the floor plans?
Of the uber luxury ones, they're massive units. Yep. Like they usually start around 1.2, 1.3 and go all the way up to 8-10 million. Okay. But anyways, that's the condo side of things. The residential side of things as well, values haven't changed all that much over the last year. We're actually down as an aggregate for detached homes, a whopping 0.67%. So it's flat. The issue here, though, if you want to call it that, is where in the city are you buying? Calgary separates itself into 4 quadrants: northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. And then we have our bedroom communities surrounding us. So just north of us, we have Airdrie. North and west is Cochrane. South of us is Okotoks. And east of us, Strathmore and Chestermere Lake. So depending on where you are within the city, okay, and I'm talking specifically within the city, not the bedroom communities, which are basically more or less similar. Depending on where you are, that same identical home, you may have a 3 or 4 month inventory, or you might have less than 1 month.
Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is, our median, or actually not median, our benchmark price, so it's actually a little bit more, statistically a better unit of measurement, is effectively the same today as it was a year ago. Last year it was 592,000. Okay, 592. Right now it's 588. So for argument's sake, there's no major change. However, depending on where you are in the city and the exact price point for that single family home, that detached home, there can be great variations. There's some excellent opportunities to come into the marketplace here for an attached home, and even like a smaller detached home. Like granted, you're at the fringe of the city, you can get into a fairly decent home for like $500,000-600,000.
Or you can buy a 400 square foot condo.
Yeah, whether I take out of money. Okay, but the biggest thing is, why does Calgary go through these cycles? I started business here in 1984, and I've had 7 periods where basically we go up and down like a yo-yo. And I find that roughly every 7 years or so, things change. Now, I say 7 years, it could be longer, it could be shorter. But I distinctly remember we had a national energy program that the federal government instituted in the early 1980s. And Calgary went into the tank because our economy was entirely dependent on the energy sector. The energy sector, people think oil. We're actually a larger natural gas producer than we are an oil producer. We make more money off of natural gas than oil, but they're both very critical for our economy. But back in the early and mid-1980s, that was roughly 70 to 80% of our economy. Whereas today, oil and gas, or energy per se, is only about 30 to 35% of our economy. We've diversified massively into all sorts of different sectors. So without getting to specifics, which ones those are, we're not as dependent for energy. However, we still are dependent on energy. So we go through these cycles where depending on what's happening in the world and where oil prices, or basically oil prices, because oil reflects also what's happening to natural gas, what's happening to those values, then impacts what's happening in Calgary. Because previously, unless people were coming here for the energy sector, there's nothing else to draw them into Calgary. Today, we have massive amounts of manufacturing, huge technology, healthcare like crazy. We have one company came here about 2 years ago. They had 100 employees. Right now, they're at 9,000. Same company.
Wow.
Again, it's just growing like in leaps and bounds.
Wow.
Technology, we have a huge growth in technology, IT, all that kind of stuff. And also what I call the fire areas. So it's financial, insurance, and real estate. You might say, real estate? What do you mean? Realtors? No, not realtors. The amount of developers who are moving out here and actually setting up operations is quite substantial. So the differentiating thing is, we talked about interprovincial migration. Are people moving here to go into the food services industry and work as a waiter or waitress, and get paid more or less minimum wage with some bonuses on tips and stuff like that? Or are they coming in here with 6-figure plus salaries? And so the people with those higher incomes are the individuals who are buying. So that's what directly impacts what's happening to Calgary. And that's one of the reasons why we previously used to have, let's say about 10 years ago, our average number of transactions in the Calgary Real Estate Board was somewhere around 17,000 units. Then we pummeled all the way up to roughly 22 to 24,000. Okay. And now the city is growing, and we expectedly would have more transactions. And we are having more transactions. The thing is, where are we at insofar as that pure number? So if you look at this number of sales, last year, this goes back to like are we in the slower market or not? Last year at this point in time, 6 months in, we had just over 15,000 transactions, all units, okay, single family, detached, attached, condos, etc. This year, we're basically at 12,500 after 6 months. So that's roughly, 18-20% drop. It's quite substantial in one sense. However, the question gets to be, why is it down? It's because we initially, in the first few months of this year, we didn't have the inventory. Now we do. But the other thing is, what can people afford? People can typically afford homes priced in, I'll just pick one data point, under 500, 600, maybe 650. That's where the vast majority of consumers can afford. Okay, we have no inventory in that price point for detached or semi-detached homes. So now what's happening? Yes, we have more sales proportionately in that 800 million, million two range, but that's a smaller segment of society. If you actually did your calculations insofar as how much equity you need to put down and how much cash flow you need on a monthly basis, a lot of families don't have that kind of coin to pay the bills, right? Take care of the kids and all that kind of stuff. So, again, bottom line right now, months of inventory, 2.62 months. We're still in just marginally a seller's marketplace, but it's very dependent on property type and location.
And
crazy.
Steve, where are you sitting now? Like, just to give people a kind of cross-Canada update now, what's going on in Vancouver burbs inventory-wise? General market.
I want to say our condos are 7-8 months supply, and I want to say our detached is in certain areas. I mean, detached is generally 10 months supply. In certain areas, it's as high as 15, 16 months of supply. So it's detached doesn't feel like it's hurting, but it definitely is. What about Toronto?
Well, yeah, condos are the same, 7-8 months of inventory, and then the smaller ones go up past 10 months of inventory when you actually break down the numbers. Detached homes are still balanced out in terms of the 5-ish months of inventory, and then our semis that I guess you guys would call attached or duplexes. I know there's different names for it. They're still sitting, and technically, like John was saying, like technically it's still a seller's market, but prices aren't going up. It's just like there's more people that want that property type. And that was something interesting that John said. It's like, how many times have we had the discussion on like inventory and do we have enough inventory? Are we in a housing crisis? All this kind of stuff. It's like, It seems like we just currently at least we don't have the type of property at the price that people can, one, afford, two, want. I think the want is the really important thing, because we got lots of properties in Toronto people could afford on paper. They don't want to buy them. They don't want to live there. They want something higher up, but what they actually want, they can't quite afford. That seems to be at least the issue that I'm seeing in our market. There's this big gap between want and afford.
Question I have for you in both your marketplaces: do your board statistics include new home sales as well, or is that a separate category that never gets included?
Separate.
It does include new home sales if they're on the MLS. The problem is most new home sales are not on the MLS. So like a developer will put one of their 35 detached homes that they're building on the MLS, or they'll put one of their condos just so it's exposure, and then they'll sell them to something else. So you don't unfortunately get to see it.
Same thing here. Yeah, same thing in Calgary in the area. And what's interesting, though, we have a massive number of new communities getting developed, and the construction out there is wild, absolutely wild. And if you look at the growth of Calgary, I moved out here with my wife back in 1984. And I'll talk about the values and what you should be doing. At that time, what do you think the average price in Calgary was in 1984?
$130,000.
37 cents. No, just
easy number to remember. 84 was 84.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Today, if you look at the average home price, okay, now depending, people say, well, Jesus, that's the average, should it be median, should it be benchmark, whatever. Okay, let's just round it off at 600,000. You can argue that it should be 575. I can also argue it should be 760. So let's just call it $600,000. It's a massive growth over the last 40 odd years. However, with that, you look at the size of the city. When I moved here, there was a whopping 545,000 people. Right now, Calgary proper, not including the bedroom communities surrounding us, we're touching 1.5 million.
Crazy. Okay, so this is something I want to ask you, and nobody's listening, so don't worry. How do you longtime Calgarians feel about all of these folks that are coming to spoil your nice little affordable life party that you guys have been having? Is it receptive towards these people that are coming from Toronto, and lots of people from my city have left and gone to Calgary? And don't give me the realtor answer. Give me the real answer. Are people like, we want to stop these folks from Surrey coming here because they're only sending their worst, or are they looking forward to?
Nobody from Surrey is moving here. It's all from Delta.
Well, yeah.
That's joking. Anyways, realistically, for the most part, there's no real animosity. Okay. Yes, people complain that the roads might be a little bit busier, whatever, but we just opened up in the last year a massive ring road, and you look at the number of vehicles on there, you sort of wonder, where were those previously? Mm-hmm. So you actually do notice the population growth and everything else, but no matter who I talk to, no matter what type of community, more established community or newer area, whatever else, people are just happy, because the one thing that I notice more so in Calgary and these bedroom communities, more so than anywhere else I lived, people get to know their neighbors. They have block parties, they get together and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in other parts of the country, you didn't even know who your neighbor was. You didn't talk to him. They came home, they pressed their garage remote, got inside, and that's it. Right? And here it's a little bit different philosophy. And I think the reason for that is because a vast majority of people who live in Calgary and the surrounding communities are not native Calgarians. Okay, they're displaced people like me who moved here because they either were, I don't know if anybody was ever forced to, but they came here because of need, or they followed their spouse like I did and said, hey, I'm going to make this home. And so therefore, we work extensively with a whole slew of different relocation companies. And same thing, people come here sometimes with a little bit of apprehensiveness and say, wow, wait a second, I kind of like this attitude here. And I remember distinctly one client, I'll remember this my whole life. Donna from Dallas. This gentleman came in as a senior executive with a large cement company we have here. And she was fighting tooth and nail not to move because her kids were down there and she loved the Dallas Cowboys. First thing she mentioned when we were in my vehicle looking at homes, "Ma, you guys, do you have Dallas Cowboys TV here?" I said, "Well, no." You know? And so anyways, here it is. 5 years later, her husband, Regin, called me up. I distinctly remember Thursday morning. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, who the heck's calling me at 8 in the morning? He says, "John, it's Regin. I need you to meet me at my house at 9 o'clock. Can you do that?" I said, "Sure. What's up?" He says, "You have to talk to my wife." "Why?" "I'm getting transferred." Okay, well, I figured, okay, she's here 5 years. She was fighting tooth and nail not to move to Calgary. "You have to tell her that we're moving. We're getting relocated." Like, "Why?" He says, "Well, first of all, we're moving to Canton, Ohio." If you look at a map where Canton, Ohio is, you'll see where it is. But second of all, she loves Calgary. She doesn't want to leave. Okay.
Do they have Stampeders TV in Ohio so she can watch her CFL?
No. She watches the Maple Leafs now.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the bottom line there, going why I went on that tangent, a lot of people come here and realize, hey, wait a second. It's quite friendly. People like doing things. It's very outdoorsy type of city. And people are accepting of people down the block because guess what? They were that same individual 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago. And so therefore it's a different mindset. Then,
it's actually,
here I am. Go ahead.
Mostly what I think of in Toronto, like even like my neighbors in my neighborhood, when I talk to them, it's really is like, where did you move from Toronto to this neighborhood in Toronto? That's like a pretty normal conversation, where I guess what you're saying, it's kind of interesting, is like a lot of people that are moving are like coming to Calgary for the first time to live there, and their neighbors might have been that person 5 years ago. So at least in my version of this, it's different. It's like my neighbors weren't from like BC or Alberta. They were from another part of Toronto and moved to this part of Toronto. And so I don't know if that would change the neighborhood vibes or the conversations or anything, but that certainly is interesting. And John, I want to you brought up relocation, and you kind of talked about it quickly there. I'm not sure if people quite realize how much business you do because of relocation companies. And I'm not going to ask you how you made all those partnerships. What I want to know is, where are people relocating from in 2025? When they're coming to Calgary, or they're leaving Calgary, where are they going?
Great question. A massive change over the last 5 years. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, a huge change. Pre-pandemic, the majority of people moving to Calgary tended to be coming in from literally everywhere in the world. I'd say 50% from the US, but you pick the continent, you pick the country. I've had people South Africa, everywhere in Europe, obviously from Canada. You name the country, people are coming here, depending on the industry. First thing, when you get a file, so, here's Tom Storey getting transferred from, I don't know, pick a city, from Dublin, from Ireland, okay? Okay, so here it is, and I know he's with a company called Metri. Okay, what the heck is Metri? So you Google Metri, you see what that company is. Wait a second. I never realized they even have a facility here. And wow, they got like 4,000 employees in Calgary. And this is like a sister city for them. It's not even a major center for them. So it's amazing how many companies we have here that are attracting people and moving on a regular basis. With the pandemic coming along, what happened is, obviously, people weren't allowed to travel, right? There was a massive restriction. You couldn't cross borders, all that kind of stuff. And because you had remote work and what I call the massive proliferation of Zoom calls coming to the fore, Zoom existed prior to the pandemic, but nobody really used it. Now it's sort of like starting up your electric toothbrush in the morning instead of the hand toothbrush, right? So that's what, in my opinion, caused a lot of remote work to come to the fore. And now I could work from my office or from my home. I didn't have to relocate to a new city. For corporations, major corporations, they're spending multi-tens of millions of dollars relocating people anywhere in the world. And it's problematic because what happens when, as an example, you're here and you've got a couple of kids and you've got that teenage daughter who's in grade 11 or grade 12, and she doesn't want to move because she doesn't want to leave all her friends. It's the last year of high school or this that kind of thing. Or alternately, you have a scenario where you have elderly aging parents and they need some care, or you don't want to leave them behind because there's no other family member to take care of them, in that old age home or whatever the case is. So there's all sorts of nuances that these companies have to look at. So what's happened with the pandemic and up to and including current, the number of relocations to Calgary from anywhere in the world has dropped massively. I'm not saying they're zero, but they went from, as an example, we'd easily handle on a slow year 50 or 60 a year.
Wow.
A good year as many as 100. Okay, that's just us. To now, maybe 10. Okay. Now, what I'm finding those 10, it's not more so people coming in, it's people leaving, where they say, hey, wait a second, I've got this expertise in whatever company I'm here. And the vast majority of them, I'd say 90% of them, are relocating to a different company in the States.
Are they going to the States?
They're going to the States. And they're staying in the same field. Okay, so basically it's transportation or manufacturing or energy or whatever, but they're switching companies and leaving. That's not to say that people still aren't coming here, but percentage-wise, there's more people leaving than they are coming in.
That's really interesting. And how exactly does Alberta feel about the rest of Canada? Are we cool with you guys right now? We're okay?
Well, I think next week we're going to have to get a referendum on separation, aren't we?
Well, look at we got Ontario, we got Alberta, we got BC, all on the same podcast, and look at us, we're getting along. John, thank you for coming on the show. This was an awesome conversation. I'm really excited that you said yes to this. And we will put down below all John and his team's information. And I don't know if I kind of glossed over this at the beginning, but John, the Hripko team, Alex, his daughter, everyone involved, top class. So if you are moving to Calgary, have questions, you should absolutely reach out to them, and we'll make sure all the links are below. John, any final words of wisdom to our listeners today?
Bottom line, never look back, always look forward.
Love it. Steve, you got anything to say?
Love it, John. Looking forward to seeing you in November, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure, and give us a call anytime. We're here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Cheers.